Hello everyone and welcome back. It's finally time for me to review Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I finally got there. So Charlie Reid looks like a normal high school kid, but he is carrying a heavy load. When he was 10 years old, his mum was killed in a hit-and-run accident, and the grief drove his father to drink. Then when he's 17, he meets a dog named Radar, and her owner, Howard Bowditch, a recluse who lives in the house at the top of the hill. Charlie starts doing jobs for Mr. Bowditch and loses his heart to Radar. And when Mr. Bowditch dies, he leaves Charlie a cassette tape containing a strange message, telling him all about the portal to another world inside his locked shed. There will be a little bit of a spoiler at the end about Radar. This is very important to some people, so it's up to you whether or not you watch it. This is really a story of two parts. We follow Charlie so closely. We follow his childhood and the events that shaped him. How he lived with his father's alcoholism and recovery, his friends, those that influenced them, and the choices he makes. As a result, we intimately know this 17-year-old Charlie when the story begins, and how Mr. Bowditch fits into the town's mythology. Getting to know Charlie really does take some time, and it does feel like we're not really moving anywhere in that initial story. But it is so important that we know him that well. We understand why he makes the choices he does, and what leads him to the choice of opening that shed door. We do meet a lot of people along the way, and as usual, King's characterisation really shines. Some people are really well developed, and interestingly, some seem more one-dimensional at first, and then you realise they're being pulled from fairy tale archetypes. This really leads to an interesting mix of people that Charlie interacts with. I really loved the reveal of the hidden world, how things were placed, how things came together, and how quickly it felt like a fully fleshed out place. There is the sense straight away that we are joining partway through the story, that this world is already established without us. This place can feel a touch nonsensical at times, but it plays with and uses its own rules. It does feel slightly off, and I really enjoyed that feeling of unreality through the story. Our own world, although is it our own world, it does feel familiar, but somehow not as real as the other. King still fails to write modern technology in a believable way, and it still just feels clunky and somehow immediately dated. The pop culture references are somewhat toned down, but still feel shoehorned in, and amazingly, the writing about computers is slightly improved. It's something that I really noticed just has not worked over his last few books. So yes, this is Dark Tower adjacent. It's not really blatant, so it's mainly a few Easter eggs here and there, and if you haven't read The Dark Tower, you're not really going to miss on any context of events. And the overall feeling of the story is that it is related to Dark Tower, although strictly it's not part of that series. One thing I did note is that this feels less immediately brutal than perhaps his more recent stuff. Yes, there is still violence, there's murder, and there's plenty of gore, but it fits into the world and the story that's being told in the way it's being told. It feels less that it's there for shock value. But I think what I love most is that this is a love letter to the darker, original fairy tales, not the watered down, sanitised modern versions. There is death and despair. There are hidden secrets and a terrifying ancient evil. Charlie has his place in these events, and he has to live through and take part in some really quite horrific events. He never forgets the face of his father, but he is not your Disney prince. King's writing is just as absorbing as ever, and despite its slower pace at times, I've really loved being in this world. It has been a while since we've had something so indulgent in this length. I mean, Sleeping Beauties was 2017, but that was written with his son Owen King. This just feels like he's just had fun writing it, and it is as long as it is. Perhaps, yes, this could have had a little bit of trimming here and there to tighten areas up, but it's King's style to meander and fill out the world in front of you. And I've got to say, Fairy Tale is probably my favourite King since Revival. So if you have read Fairy Tale, I would love to know your thoughts. And now for the spoiler section. So if you finish with the review and you don't want to know any more, thank you for watching. But now for the spoiler. At the heart of this book, it is a story about a boy who goes on an adventure to save his dog. And while at times it seems quite perilous, Radar lives to the end. So thanks for watching, and I shall see you all soon.